Good morning, and thank you for attending Police Headquarters. My name is Constable Carolyn DeClute, and I am here today to introduce Toronto Police Service Deputy Chief James Raymer, who will be providing an update on Project Kraken. Also today with us is Acting Chief Superintendent Carl Thomas, Ontario Provincial Police, Commander of the Organized Crime Enforcement Unit. Chief Superintendent Michael Lesage, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Officer in charge of the Criminal Operations for O Division. Deputy Chief Brian Bigra, York Regional Police. Deputy Chief James Raymer will open with some remarks.
Good morning. The purpose of today's news conference is to inform the public of the results of an investigation undertaken by the Toronto Police Service known as Project Kraken. As it was indicated by the Chief yesterday, this investigation was commenced several months ago by the Major Projects Section of the Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force. The investigation focused on the criminal street gang known as the Chester Lee Gang. It also focused on the association of members of the Chester Lee Gang with persons identified as having ties to more traditional organized crime. Early on, intelligence led our investigators to believe that members of the Chester Lee Gang and their associates were involved in numerous violent incidents and activities throughout the past 4 years. These offenses included attempted murders, firearms occurrences including reckless discharges that so often endanger innocent members of the public, drug trafficking, numerous robberies, and are believed to be responsible for several murders. Investigators were able to substantiate and now allege that the Chester Lee Gang were involved in extensive gun and drug activity. Investigators were also able to allege that numerous members of this gang committed brazen armed robberies while having a callous disregard for public safety. In 2 robberies in particular, tow trucks smashed their way through the front of jewelry stores and firearms were discharged. It is further alleged, based on evidence gathered throughout the investigation, that the Chester Lee Gang operated as a coordinated criminal organization. Many of the charges laid in this investigation reflect this allegation. With respect to our efforts yesterday morning, I can report that it involved the coordinated efforts of several hundred police officers representing 12 police services in Ontario. There were 41 search warrants and 3 arrest warrants executed in multiple jurisdictions, including Toronto, Hamilton, South Simcoe, Peel Region, York Region, Halton Region, and Durham Region. 55 individuals were arrested yesterday. A total of 73 individuals now face charges. There were 599 charges laid, including offenses related to participating in a criminal organization, firearm-related offenses, including unlawful possession of firearms, firearms trafficking, and firearms importation. Charges in relation to illegal drug activity, including possession and trafficking, and robberies and additional weapons offenses. A complete list of the accused persons and the charges will be provided to you. Seized as a result of this investigation were 23 firearms, of which you see before you, with an estimated street value of over $84,000. I can also advise you that it is alleged that some of the firearms you see before you were used in the robberies that members of the gangs committed. Also, some of the guns before you were seized from tow truck operators who had armed themselves and were prepared to shoot other tow truck operators over an ongoing battle over territory. The Project Kraken investigation was also able to identify members of the Chester Lee Gang who were involved in an extensive drug trafficking network. The predominant drug trafficked by this network was fentanyl. Quantities of cocaine were also seized. Investigators have arrested and alleged that these members were trafficking fentanyl to communities in Thunder Bay, Sudbury, and Peterborough. I would like to thank the officers in these specific communities for their assistance with Project Kraken and the dismantling of this trafficking network. Due to the health and risks of touching and transporting fentanyl, the drugs have not been brought for display. 1,058 grams of cocaine were seized with an estimated value of $116,000. 1,133 grams of fentanyl were seized with an estimated value of $250,000, and 92,000 in Canadian currency was seized. Working in collaboration with our partner agencies, Project Kraken has significantly disrupted the criminal operations and the hierarchy of the Chester Lee Gang. I would like to acknowledge the outstanding work the investigators from the Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force Major Projects Section, along with our partners here today with me. Each of these services contributed significantly with respect to personnel and resources. A coordinated effort was vital as it was recognized early in this investigation that the reach of the Chester Lee Gang extended beyond our borders. I thank them for their commitment to this operation and its success. In closing, I'm confident that Project Kraken will result in the incarceration of numerous violent gang members and that it has had a direct and positive impact on communities throughout the GTA. In addition, I want to emphasize the importance of education and prevention, the need to protect our young people. With that in mind, I want to mention that our Gun and Gang unit will be hosting 31 community town hall meetings in various neighborhoods in the City of Toronto starting in September. It will be an opportunity to interact and educate members from the community on gangs, the different resources and programs available to youth, parents, and community members. We encourage people to attend. The service will be advertising the dates and they will be available on our website. Finally, on behalf of the TPS, I'd like to also thank the following agencies for their assistance throughout Project Kraken, and particularly in relation to yesterday's successful operations. Peel Regional Police, the Halton Regional Police, London Police, Barrie Police, Brantford Police, the Durham Regional Police, Windsor Police, Sarnia, and the Canadian Border Services Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Raymer. We will take some questions now. Please state your name and which media outlet you're from.
Joe Warmington, Toronto Sun. Congratulations for this. The one thing that's different, Deputy Raymer, from all the other times we've been here, is that the narcotic that you mentioned is deadly for those that come in contact with it, whether it's innocent people, police officers, emergency responders, etc. And the question is about all these people that are in custody, the routine of letting them out on bail and all that's going to happen. Just like as if it was normal, there's a poison in the middle of this pill, which is that fentanyl, which you disrupted. I've never heard it mentioned in a big news conference before. It's usually heroin or cocaine or marijuana before when it was illegal. So I think the question to you, it's a difficult one to put you on the spot, but from a policing point of view, the police did its job here, but there needs to be maybe heightened, something different about the bail process and going forward. I don't know if you want to get into it. Hopefully you talk about that. Next week, all these people will be on the street again.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Well, I didn't mean all of them, but yeah, many of them will be. We've seen that from history.
Well, I know we're working alongside with the Crown's Office to ensure that the proper evidence is presented at court so that people that should be in custody can remain in custody. In addition to that, there will be people that will be released and hopefully with significant bail conditions. And we now have programs supported by the province to ensure that we're doing additional checks to ensure those people that are released are complying with their bail conditions.
But just back to that's good, the fentanyl component of this. All of the drugs in the past have been deadly, but this is deadly even if you get, police officers have to go in covered head to toe. You couldn't bring it here to show us. So that's something different. I mean,
it's definitely a plague across the country, Joe. There's no question about it.
So do we need to should there be some sort of a national strategy on fentanyl? Or what do we do with this? Because it's not routine, in my view, anyway, what I'm seeing and when I'm hearing all the overdoses we've had this year. We can't even cover it all because it's hard to know what it is, but it seems to be an epidemic and a crisis that we're just sitting on the mountain top of. It's about to explode into something huge. This is proof of it. This is the muscle for moving that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk about fentanyl, what your experience is.
Well, it's definitely a very difficult, deadly drug. I mean, we're seeing that across the country, and I think police agencies across the country are working collectively to stem the tide, and that's why I think you're seeing more media presentations like this or press conferences where you're seeing fentanyl being discussed because we're seeing it out there. There's a terrific proliferation of it, and the police are coming into contact more and more frequently, and we're working towards stemming that tide.
I just just want to ask one more. I know other people have questions, but you mentioned about the tow truck part of it. That's interesting as well. Is that gang tow truck people, or is that tow truck industry? Is it separate? Would you mind sort of elaborating on that?
Well, my understanding of it right now is that we have tow truck drivers throughout the GTA, and all our agencies are working collectively towards it, that are involved in fighting over territory. And we believe that's the primary reason.
Territory or
Towing,
drug sales?
towing territory, the territory that they're operating in.
And they're part of this bus here today?
That's correct.
Wow.
Can you just, I missed the first part, I apologize. Can you just describe how the tow trucks were involved again, and how to tie into this fight over territory?
Well, actually, perhaps maybe what I'll do is, I have Superintendent Watts here from the Organized Crime Enforcement Unit. Maybe I'll ask him to come up here and he can provide perhaps some other details with respect to that.
Good morning. So you're asking specifically in relation to the tow truck drivers?
Yes, I mean, you say that they're fighting over territory, so how does this relate to all this crime taking place?
Well, within this investigation, encapsulated within the conspiracies that are laid, within the firearms that were seized, there were certain incidents, certain occurrences where tow truck drivers were armed with firearms and involved in certain occurrences that are historically part of this investigation and currently. So, like I said, this is a little different. Traditionally, the previous major project sections have been in one specific neighborhood. So you'll notice I'd say the disparity or the different regions that all the warrants were executed in. So this was more of a wide-ranging conspiracy between different levels. You may have from street gang members to mid-level gang members, tow truck drivers allegedly involved. And so it's kind of there's a few different angles to this investigation that differs from previously. And so that includes the drug angle, so.
How did the
What
tow truck drivers
territories
get
are we talking
involved, though?
about here with the tow truck drivers?
What territory?
Yeah, what territories were they fighting over?
I would say well, it's literally GTA-wide, but a focus of many of our occurrences are Central East Toronto, the Central East section of Toronto, which has been previously reported on by you all.
But how did the tow truck drivers get enmeshed in this and embroiled in this whole thing, is what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I can't really speak to that. That would be something that, they would probably tell you the genesis of that. But it is over territory, and it's very lucrative. It's a financial gain for towing. And stemming from that, whatever activities stem from that, such as it is.
How many tow truck drivers are on this list that are charged?
I want to say approximately seven.
And again, sorry to put you all on the spot,
Yeah.
because it did sort of stand out.
Yes.
For us. So the tow truck drivers, part of this are because they are involved in being armed. So that's why they're swept up in this. They're not necessarily directly affiliated with the Chester Lee gang, or they are affiliated with it.
I'm not going to get into speaking about individual tow truck drivers or as a group. That will come out in the evidence. That'll be put forward in the evidence, so I'm not going to discuss that at this point. So,
If I could just ask about the fentanyl.
Yes.
Is fentanyl, is it being marketed, sold as fentanyl, or is it being disguised as other drugs? Or is this an unusual circumstance where they're selling it as fentanyl?
it's both. It's a synthetic opioid. Some at-risk persons prefer fentanyl, and they specifically use fentanyl. Other times it is disguised or it's put in other substances, whether it be cocaine, heroin, or otherwise. So, and I'll speak to, there is heightened concern to Joe's earlier question. There is absolutely heightened concern to this. Our partners with the PPSC, there's a national sentencing strategy that's in place that exists for fentanyl, which is it is the number one controlled substance that is being looked at for its devastating effects, and it's being reflected in the sentencing. So we are in cooperation not only with our law enforcement partners, we're also in cooperation with the judiciary and our prosecuting agencies to stem the tide, as was said earlier.
Forget about the
Is there anybody that can go over what the Hamilton Police Force's role in all of this stuff?
What Hamilton Police Force's role is?
How are they involved in it?
There is 2 search warrants that were conducted in the region of Hamilton. That's all I'll say to that.
It would be actually, go ahead. I was just, well, at some point, it'd be good to hear from your other officers too about their regions.
Absolutely, I'll sit down whenever you like. How about that?
What's that?
I said, I'll sit down whenever you tell me, Joe.
Well, you know what, I was gonna say that we'd like to talk to you a little bit after this as well, just because I think the tow truck thing, like, I'm not clear in my mind if it's part of this or if it needs to be a sidebar that just kind of
Right.
came up, and I know you have real tricky issues in terms of your investigation, but we do have to get that right, figure out, because there's so many, the tow truck industry is not those 7 people, it's
Yeah.
bigger than that, so.
I'd like to clarify one thing before I sit down about fentanyl. When you're talking about street level grade fentanyl, it's not toxic to your skin. It doesn't cause overdoses. People handle it, users handle it, undercover police officers handle it. People handle it without gloves. When you're talking about high level pure kilogram package fentanyl, that's when you get into the effects of, exposure and overexposures. And obviously if you're, as they say, if you're ingesting it, injecting it, inhaling it, well, then that's a whole other level. That's where the toxicity comes in.
Police officers don't know, and emergency responders don't know which level it is.
Fair enough. But I can suggest to you, based on my experience, that if you see it in a kilo level format, wrapped similarly as a kilo of cocaine, that may well be pure fentanyl. If it's being sold on the street, that's mixed, and it's diluted with other drugs, that is not going to be toxic grade.
Can we hear from some of the other officers, because I understand that none of the other people have spoken from what we hear in York Region. Would that be okay? Just to describe your involvements one by one, would that be okay? Okay.
So from an OPP perspective, we support, we provided investigative support. I think it's really important for the law enforcement community to have that collaborative approach to these investigations, both because of where some of the individuals reside, as well as just plain working together on these investigations. And just to touch on the fentanyl, it's impacting all our communities across Canada. And we do talk about that. There are strategies within our communities, all our communities, that we're working with the other stakeholders from within to try to approach that and fentanyl and try to reduce the harm in our communities.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I think the RCMP, we know about York Regional concerns with it and the bust that they've done with it, but the small towns, these kinds of things, maybe you could explain, because we're still learning about fentanyl, I think. You can tell that there's things that Officer Watts mentioned. So how is it true that it's being sprayed onto marijuana? That's one thing we've been hearing. We haven't been able to confirm that. We understand it's being put into cocaine that way, at least there. Or is it taken straight, or how is it all working?
In relation to cannabis and being sprayed over, that's more of a myth at this point. I'm not saying there aren't investigations out there that may be alleging that at this point, but I don't think we have any confirmed cases within Ontario at this point where there's true fentanyl within the cannabis. I can talk from our perspective of that. So it is hitting our smaller communities in Ontario in different forms. So working with our street crime units, working with public health officials within the communities, we're really taking an aggressive approach to work with them, because there is a health side of this that we need to work collaborative with them as well.
How do you feel about having been able to seize all of these guns and all of this drug and getting it off the streets? How do you feel?
I think it's a very positive approach for our communities when you look at the seizures and from the Street Kings they were made from. It's a profit. They're there for profit, and taking the guns off the street, I can't talk for Toronto, but it's saving lives and making our community safer.
Where is the source of this fentanyl? Is it easily to produce and you can cook it in the kitchen? kitchen and prepare like those masculine or marijuana easily prepared in the house?
It's not as easily prepared as one would think within a residence. So I think what we're experiencing a lot, Chief Lesage, do you want to make in relation to importation of fentanyl?
Yeah, a lot of the fentanyl is coming from abroad. We're getting a lot of, through us with the RCMP, we've been dealing with it for the last number of years, mail order packages. We've been doing a lot of work with our international partners to try to stem that flow into Canada. And we work with, like I say, within the organized crime component as well. But it's not manufactured. It's actually mixed with other pills or with other drugs. And that's what makes it so deadly. It's because it's not mixed proper. It's not, you don't know what the dose is per drug, per pill when they do press it. So you could end up with more fentanyl in one pill than you would in another. So that's what makes a lot of the fentanyl so deadly.
Before we used to come here and we talked about OxyContin, that was the big problem. Is kind of replaced that? Is that?
That was because of OxyContin. It was an opiate addiction. So it's those who are.
This is a synthetic opiate.
It does.
The same thing, but
It's
not.
similar
So
effect.
It's
Yeah.
much easier for the drug dealers to.
It's for in the people who are addicted to opiates. It's a physical addiction, and it's the same with heroin. So it's a physical addiction. If this is what took place of it, so this is what they need to continue to go because of the addiction. So it's in the same family, the opiate family.
Can I ask you about, you mentioned that there is some overlap between street gangs and traditional organized crime. Is that the tow truck component of that, or can you speak a little bit more to what that overlap is?
We did, well, actually, maybe what I should do is let Carl speak about that, because we had a component of the investigation that the OPP took over for us on that aspect.
During the course of the investigation, the OPP were made aware of involvement of organized crime entities in a process to influence the decision of on our approved use for a commercial property located within a municipality. I don't want to comment on to get down too deep on that because it's still under investigation. So you have to remember, I think, between different organized crime groups across the country, they're there for profit now. And if they have to work together to obtain that profit, they do. And I think we see a lot more of that now across the country.
Can you speak to what the group was, or what the industry was, or any in general details about what they?
It's a traditional organized crime group within a municipality within the province.
Right. But in terms of the commercial property, what did they want?
It was cannabis related.
Oh.
Yes.
Maybe your region could tell us about your involvement in these concerns.
So our involvement in Project Kraken, we recognize the importance of having strong law enforcement partners. We recognize that crime transcends borders. The investigation, Project Kraken, may have been rooted in the City of Toronto. However, as this investigation has proven and shown, it clearly transcends the borders. The criminals don't recognize the borders that our municipalities have constructed, and they go and they spread beyond that. So York Region, we were engaged right from the early beginnings of Project Kraken. We support with investigators, surveillance teams, all kinds of different traditional methods. And with these joint force operations, I would say one of the key benefits is that we put aside our municipalities per se and focus on the investigation and truly work to protect and safeguard the community by doing excellent investigations. You comment on the number of firearms. To me, that is absolutely amazing to take that number of firearms off the street and out of the hands of criminals. But I will also add that it is also concerning that we are able to capture and take and remove this amount of firearms from the streets. So
It's true, because remember we were here before when you stopped in one car with this amount or more. But these are all from individual people that you arrested, and sometimes when you make an arrest, everybody involved has a firearm before there might be one. So it's an indicator to it. I was going to ask Constable DeClute, when we wrapped up this, there's a couple other things in the news. I was wondering if we could ask Deputy Raymer that while he's here.
We'll assist you first after.
I've just got another question about this before we move on. When you were talking about traditional organized crime moving in on commercial businesses, and then you said cannabis, are we talking organized crime trying to muscle in on legal cannabis growth, legal cannabis manufacturing operations?
What I would say is traditional organized crime will take every opportunity to make profit. It doesn't matter what business it is.
But is it cannabis, legal cannabis production?
It is in relation to a cannabis facility, and that's all I'll say at this time.
Can I just, RCMP, you're saying that this is coming from outside of Canada? Is that, what is this battle that you're fighting? I mean, how hard is it if it's not coming from within Canada, it's not being manufactured here? Where is it coming from, and how hard is it to prevent it from getting here?
Can't really be specific on the area that's coming in. We're dealing with through our partners through the Canada Border Services agencies. A lot of it's coming through the mail. We're getting a lot of shipments. We've been targeting organized crime components at the highest levels to try to deal with the fentanyl. Last year, the year before, we did Project Outremen's. In that, we had kilogram levels of fentanyl and carfentanil in there as well. So last year, opiates were part of the RCMP's federal policing strategy. So for us, it's targeting the organized crime figures that are bringing it into the country.
And how difficult a battle is this? I mean, you're saying it's coming through the mail. Is it easy to detect for dogs, or I mean, how hard is it to prevent it coming?
It's the difference is because it could come in it's not in the larger packages as a lot of the other packages, a lot of the like our other past drugs were, could come in smaller packages, but we are still seeing the larger as well, and that's, like I say, those are part of our our ongoing investigations now to try to figure out.
Dogs pick it up?
Yep, absolutely.
Can you comment like a little more broadly on gang violence and gun violence in general? Obviously, this was something that we made a big deal of in Toronto last year, and Chief Saunders had referenced it as a priority for 2019, and the province has a lot of money to tackling this. And what has happened since last year in the last 12 months to curb this problem? Are we on track to have a safer summer?
I think so. There's been coordinated efforts between police agencies with funding from different levels of government, so that we're working on both, not only on the enforcement side, but the other very important aspect, and I would argue probably the more important aspect, is that prevention and education piece to keep people from getting involved in this type of activity. So I think we are certainly, as the Toronto Police Service is certainly focusing a lot of resources onto the prevention piece, and we're hoping to see. We're seeing a trend this year. We're seeing our shootings down this year, but it's that's not to say that it's going to continue that way. But it's a constant battle, and our people are across the organization are working very diligently to try to correct that.
And what does a project like this, what should people take from this, that there is that fluidity between street gangs and traditional organized crime, and it's not just about street level drugs, there's also business interests and lots of things overlap. What should people take from that about the reality of gang violence and kind of the many tentacles of that?
Well, as Chief Superintendent Thomas said earlier, I mean, it's about money, and it's the motivation for money. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's a desire for a different lifestyle, and these activities, the trafficking of human trafficking, drug trafficking, the guns are the tools of the trade, and it's about profit making, and so it's a battle that's very difficult to overcome.
Could you talk a little bit more about the education prevention program and what exactly that entails with consumers, like targeting, and how you can execute those programs?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that question.
Oh, could you explain a little bit more about the education prevention programs that you plan to execute after this?
Well, we have in our integrated gun and gang task force, one of the aspects that we're working on is a strategy for people to get out of gangs and not become involved in gangs in the first place. And so, a matter of fact, we have an officer here that's a key component of that program, Ron Chinzer, and he lectures communities and speaks to different groups, school programs, and it's to get the messaging out there. And we're also working with other agencies that to provide assistance and counseling and to bring that to attention to the youth and families, and if parents have concerns about their children, so that they have an avenue to seek guidance and help to prevent people from getting into the program. So that's really what we're trying to do, and that's some of the messaging that will go out in the town hall meetings that we've got scheduled starting in September.
Can someone tell me how many officers were involved? I understand it was an 8-month investigation. Can you tell us just how much manpower was taken?
Well, I mean, there's different numbers throughout the course of the investigation. I indicated in my opening comments that there was several hundred. I would suggest that, you know, when you look into all the resources that go into planning an operation that yesterday across the province, there were probably in the neighborhood 600-700 people involved. And that's really on that one day, but throughout the course of the months, we've got different numbers of officers throughout the province, particularly as this one was Toronto-led in Toronto, that are working, and so it's a different number, but I'd say collectively in that 600-700 range.
In the list of offenses that you've laid out that these accused are alleged to have committed, you also included murder. Can you comment on which cases those were? No,
I can't. That unfortunately, we were unable to lay a murder charge. That doesn't mean that it means that we didn't have the evidence to lay a murder charge, but we have very great concerns about some of the individuals and believe they have been involved in that activity.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Chief Rainer. Global says that the police chief union is in a meeting with the chief of police today. Can you comment, or is going to talk about the Raptors parade and the issues that happened there? Could you comment on when and where that will take place and what you hope to come out of that talk?
I'm not involved in that. I believe the chief is meeting today, as you've indicated, but I have no information. I can't comment on it.
Maybe you talked about shooting today, Danzig, again, a little bit. I know that it's people out covering it there, but there's also one right near here on Elm Street, I understand. Whatever you can tell us on that.
Yeah, both of those are early on. The two incidents have just recently recurred. It's an unfortunate. It's another tragedy. A 17-year-old youth, in particular, the one out in Danzig that's been killed, and it's you know, at the end of the day, it's why we are here today, because the focus of the charges that you've seen laid today relate to criminal organization. And that's in fact what these people are, and they're engaged in these type of activities, and we've now seen another unfortunate victim today. It's early on in the investigation, so I really can't provide you much at this point.
And I just wanted to get your comment on the fact that Clinton Gale was denied bail, and maybe if you don't mind, I know it's a little personal, but you could reflect on 25 years ago where you were on the night that Todd Bayless was murdered.
Actually, I was working in the homicide squad when Todd was killed. Prior to that, I had worked with his father in 31 Division, so I do remember that event. And it's, I mean, I'm happy with the outcome that occurred yesterday.
You can apply for bail again in 1 year.
That's correct.
We could be back here talking about this a year from now.
Perhaps, yes.
And if you go back to look at Clinton Gale 25 years ago, he was a drug dealer. And that's what he was doing to make his living. And here we are 25 years later. It's the same thing. And it's a new drug, new problems, but the same. And a police officer was killed. And this week, a police officer was almost killed as well in this very operation. So we definitely have problems. I mean, it's not all the police's job to deal with it, obviously, but in your experience, I think it's a long time. How long have you been on the job now?
A long time.
It must be frustrating.
It is, but it's what we're here to do, and it's the work we're doing, and we're gonna keep doing it.
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for attending. We have already uploaded our post-news release, so you can find it online. We also have copies at the table over here. Thank you.